This is the recap from the 4th episode of the IntentionALL podcast. Jordan Painter was our guest on the podcast, and these were the notes and takeaways that I have that I'm going to share with you guys and document for myself to come back and look on these in the future. One of the things that he hammered home through the whole interview, and he kept coming back to it because it's such a perfect concept for broad perspective as well as individuals and looking at different things. You have to start with the end in mind. And in order to figure out what you have to do right now to move you in that direction, you have to have that goal. Otherwise, you're just going to be sporadically moving around, doing random different things. So starting with the end in mind is that key piece of advice that he just kept giving through the whole thing. And after you formulate, where do I want to end up, then you can take a step back and say, okay, what actions do I need to take right now? And you can evaluate each different one. Will this move me in that direction? I don't have the perfect path. There's no such thing as a perfect path. But if I take this action, is the probability that it will move me in the right direction of my long-term goal, is it high? So I thought that was very helpful. And I love how he started out. He just said, early in his journey, he kept talking about what he wanted to do, and he had a mentor challenge him, step in and just said, don't talk about it, just do it. If you're not going to do it, stop talking about it. And I think that's just such a great application for everyone, especially myself. It's cool to dream. It's great to dream. You have to dream to figure out where you want to go, but you have to start. Take the action, move yourself in that direction, stop talking about it, do it, and take the action. Another thing that I love that he said, and he gave a great analogy that goes with this, but he said, there's no such thing as balance, only priorities. Everybody wants to align and put the perfect time allocation to each area of life, and then you can step back, you can sit back, you can relax, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And that is just not the reality is at all. So yeah, you're going to have priorities. You're going to have your rocks, he called them. And he gave the analogy of a jar. And you have your rocks. Those are your top key priorities. This is an empty jar. You put the rocks into the jar. They stack up. They take up a majority of the space. And then you take the sand, the things that don't matter as much, some of the things that need to get done, some of the things that are more lenient, you don't have to do. But the concept is you pour the sand around the rocks and it fills up. If you take that same amount of sand, you put it in first, and then you try to put in all the rocks, you have so many gaps in there that the rocks don't fit anymore because you put the rocks, the top priorities, last. So you have to prioritize your life around the key pieces that you care about, the rocks, and then everything else filters and is formed around that. So I just thought that was a beautiful visualization, actual example for how prioritizing actually filters out through your life. So to wrap on that one, there's no such thing as balance, only priorities. And then I have just a couple key categories from the interview, and there's a bunch of bullet points under each one. So one of the key themes that we talked about was growth. So some of the bullet points that I have under that is no victim mindset. Learning is a lifelong habit. You have to think long term, and you have to be consistent. If you take consistent action over a long period of time, you're going to accomplish that goal. You're going to accomplish a percentage of that goal. And he kept referring to income as the shovel. There's the active thing that you do. That's what the shovel represents. There's the activity that you do to generate income. And then in parallel with that, be building the wealth side of things. Sometimes that's in business, sometimes that's in real estate, but building up the equity and the net worth side of things. And you're not pulling money out of that at the beginning. He emphasized hugely, and I'll probably touch on this in a minute, but the first 10 years that you are building the equity side, the net worth side, he's like, do not pull out of that. Feed that. Let that compound, and then eventually that will change. But that delayed gratification at the very beginning, that first 10, 15 years, is super, super important. So have those two avenues, the income avenue that you're doing actively, and then the equity side that you're still actively involved in, but you are not using that to feed your lifestyle. So that was just a good framework for me to reflect on as I thought back on the interview. And one of the questions that I asked him is, for an entrepreneur, what is the key skill to learn that will benefit you the most as a entrepreneur? And he said leadership, the concept of leadership. And there's so much that goes into that, so I'll just list a few that come to mind for me. But under that overarching theme of leadership comes communication. Can you accurately communicate your vision, your goal to someone else? Can you motivate them by explaining, this is the goal that we want to accomplish, this is the role that you're going to play in it, here is how you are going to get rewarded for accomplishing the results. So handing off to this person, here's the results I want you to get, here's the responsibility, and here's the reward that I'm going to give you for that as well. Do you have the ability to communicate those things in a way that motivates people and gets them excited about what you're doing? This ties into the reward piece of that I just talked about. But are you striving to help others win? Do you have their genuine interest in mind? Are you actually serving them as their leader? So that second point was help others win. Third part is motivation, because every single person is unique and different, made in the image of God. So they have different things going on in their life that are going to play into their desires and their goals. Are you willing to ask the right questions, to listen to them, and then take that information that you gathered and say, oh, you know what? That other person that I talked to, they were really motivated by this thing. But that's not going to help this current person. So how can I set up this individual for success based on their goals and priorities? So helping people win, and that looks different for every single person, and there's different motivations for that. Delegating, creating systems to do that, so you're not just tossing stuff on to other people, but delegating in a way that's repeatable and built around systems. And then helping others grow. Part of that is, yeah, for sure, financially and professionally, but there's so many other aspects of life as well. So what is the culture and the environment that is being created within the workplace? What other people am I bringing on the team? How is this individual that joins, how am I adding value to them? How are they benefiting from the culture that I'm creating here? And then next point, this is separate from the leadership concept, but it's the delayed gratification. The first 10 to 15 years, reinvest in the business. And that's why there's the importance of the two things. The income generator to cover the living expenses, the basic things, but then the project that is building towards something in the future. And with that, having that long-term mindset, that delayed gratification. He also talked about beware of the lifestyle creep. Just because you're making more money, just because you have all this equity over here, doesn't mean you stop and you start spending more. It's the delayed gratification, because future you is going to be very glad that you stayed the course, you stayed focused, and you put in the work to build the equity, the net worth, the portfolio side of things. And a quick framework for that is you have your income generator. That flows directly into assets. And I already listed there's multiple different assets you could possibly have. The key to the asset portion of this is becoming elite in that. At the beginning, you want to be super skilled in whether it's real estate, stocks, crypto. There's so many things that you could look into. For me, it's commercial real estate. That's what I know. That's what I'm experienced in. I'm going to compound my skills to become an elite investor in the commercial real estate space. And then eventually that will fund lifestyle. Yeah, you have expenses and general things that you have to pay for now. It's good to enjoy life to a degree, but make sure that the unneeded added things do not get added until after the portfolio. Income, invest in assets, then the lifestyle. The second main category that I had here is community. And there's really two main things that are going to fall into this. There's the coach and mentor side of community, and then there's also the peer community. So there's the up-down relationship of this person is ahead of me, and then there's the camaraderie of these are the people that I'm doing it with. We're at similar levels, we're pushing each other. When someone gets ahead, we are pulling that person behind us, giving them more information, whatever that looks like, but we're doing it together here on this level. And then there's the mentor that we're learning from, and they are helping pull us up the ladder or the stairs. So some notes on both of those things. For coach, he emphasized, and I love this point, only take advice from someone who has done the thing that you want to do. Do they have proven authority for the actual activity, goal, result that you want to achieve? Because it can be very easy to listen to someone who has never done it, they've never tried, and they just tell you how risky it is, even though they've never done it. And then they scare you out of doing it. Whereas if you talk to the person that's actually accomplished it, they're going to be like, yeah, it was hard. I had to face a lot of stuff that at the time I didn't want to face, but I am so glad I did. Yeah, it's hard, and there's a certain degree of risk, but once you increase your knowledge, you can accomplish the goal, because as your knowledge goes up, the risk profile goes down, and you can accomplish the goal. But since they've accomplished it, they can give you a balanced view of, yeah, absolutely it's hard, and it takes work. It doesn't come free, but it is doable, and they can instill in you that belief that it is possible. So that was the first and huge point on the coach. The last three things I'll mention for the coach that were my takeaways and paying to be with a coach or a mentorship group is, one, when you pay, you get a higher quality of community because everybody else in the group is paying. That shows their level of commitment. It also shows the caliber of people, like how serious are these people that are in the group. So why should you pay? The quality of the group. Two, when people have a buy-in effect, when it costs them something to be a part of the group, there's going to be a different level of involvement and engagement in the group that they get and that they give because of that buy-in effect. And third ties into the first point, but you're learning from qualified people. When they are charging you that amount of money, and obviously there's scams out there for sure, but if someone is charging you that amount of money, they're either delusional, you shouldn't be in their group anyway. But if they're genuinely charging that money because they believe in the value of the group, that means there's genuinely value that you will get there. So for example, I saw this play out for myself, and this will tie into my biggest takeaway from it. But every time that I paid more money to get in a better group per se, every time I paid more money to get into a group, I got more benefit out of it because I was more invested in the group. Also, the caliber of people within the group was higher because the ticket to get into the group was higher. And I made the largest leaps of growth when I joined those groups. So I saw all three of those things be very accurate. And just two things that I'll say on is the person qualified? Are you learning from a qualified person? Because there's definitely groups out there that you pay and you don't get the value, which honestly I would argue that most of that value should be put on yourself. How much effort are you going to be put in the group? But two simple things to ask yourself if you're looking at a paid group. Is the person leading the group, have they done it before? Do they have the track record? So have they actually done it? And then what's their track record of doing it? It's one thing to say you did something, and it's another thing to say that you did it well or you accomplished the result. So those are just the two comments I would make on that. The second part of community that I want to touch on is the mastermind portion. He told a really cool story, Jordan did, in the interview of when he was in a mastermind group. And this is one of the amazing things about being around other people that are in either the industry or similar industry that you are in. So he was on a call, they were talking about a project, the mentors listened to him really well, asked him a lot of good questions about it, helped kind of coach them in the next direction. And then this group, this was a while ago, the next group came on and they were just talking about this massive project that they were doing. Huge development project, and Jordan just shared that it caused a paradigm shift for him, a shift in his thinking of, oh, if they're doing this large of a deal, maybe we should be aiming a little bit bigger. I think we can go bigger in what we're trying to accomplish right now. The goals and the properties that we're doing, I think we can go bigger. And now he's doing really cool deals, really cool projects. But part of that is because of who he chose to surround himself with, drew him to that next level, opened his mind to the next level of what was possible. So that is just a big piece of the mastermind, is you will get ideas from more people that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. And that is really the goal of the mastermind, to join a group where there are people ahead of you that you can learn from, open up your mindset, see what's possible, and maybe skip a couple steps, not in a bad way, but there's no need. If there's a path directly straight, but the only one you know winds like this, you're going to be spending a lot of time winding back and forth, where you could have just cut through all that and gone straight. So that's one of the beautiful things about a mastermind, is it can open your perspective to other things. So the last thing I'll share, it was just a quote that Jordan had before I share my biggest takeaway and application from this, because I think that's super important to, have a takeaway, but also what is the application? What about me or my activities is going to change because of what I learned? Because otherwise I'm not actually learning. I'm just being entertained. So, quote from Jordan before I jump into my application. He said, "I love to motivate people, but I cannot be their motivation. It is great to tell people truth, to tell them what's possible and get people excited, but there's that reality that there has to be something within that person, a level of self-determination that says, I'm going to put in the effort, I'm going to do the thing, he's telling me what I have to do, but I'm going to personally go out and execute on that." You can only tell someone so much what's possible, and there's just a level that they have to be motivated themselves to go out and execute and do the thing. And I would even but a word that could be also put in that second spot of motivation is discipline. I like to motivate people, but I cannot be their discipline. Execution and discipline. You can tell people what's possible, you can show them what actual action steps they need to take, but no one can make the individual take the actual steps that they need to do to progress. So I just love that quote, because Jordan is a very fun, energetic guy. He has a lot of great ideas. He's very creative. He's executed a lot of wonderful business strategies. So I just love that quote, because it puts the personal responsibility back on the individual, which I absolutely love. So my key takeaway for myself really hit me, and I've been reflecting on it since then, when he shared that story about the mastermind that he was in, where that other guy was doing, well, it was actually a group, but they were just doing a large deal, and it really just shifted his mindset of, man, I've just been head down looking at this thing, but there's so many other opportunities that I could be looking at that I wasn't even aware of. But now that this person mentioned this, I'm thinking in a different way. So for me, reflecting on that, I am realizing that I need my next paradigm shift. I need to take some massive action that will cause me to have exponential growth. We talked about this a little bit in the interview, or I should say Jordan did, but looking for exponential growth, multiples for growth, not just linear, slow growth. There's a time and a place for that. But if you're at a certain level in your career, you have the ability, and you should be looking for multiples of growth of, hey, if I were to 5x this or 10x this, or take this timeline and cut it in half, what would I have to do to make that possible? So back for myself, I need a paradigm shift that will cause me to have exponential growth and will give me multiples rather than linear growth. And I already shared this a little bit, but as I reflected on my own story, my own past, when I made the most advancement, it was when and I should say positively, when I changed the most in a positive way, and when I learned the most, and when I grew the most, it was when I was uncomfortable. And specifically, going back to the mastermind, it was when I chose to put myself in an environment of other people that were accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. They were all taking massive action. And all of a sudden, the temperature in the room, so to speak, got raised. And now my bar of performance, my bar of awareness got raised to another level because of the caliber of people that I was around. So I'm going to be looking for that this year, that is my biggest takeaway, and I'm going to be striving to put myself in a situation that is uncomfortable in a positive way so that I experience the growth and the change and the development that I need. So this was episode recap for episode 4 with Jordan Painter.